everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Hate Your Taste in Movies. This is a movie podcast where we make our friends watch our favorite movies and let the friendship fall where it may. You can follow us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste and on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. I'm Jackie.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
And today we had the great privilege of watching a Jackie pick. Yay! And the crowd goes wild.
Unfair that Jackie does the intro, so then when it's my pick, she's like, it's a terrible week. And then when it's hers, she's like, yay, the best week ever.
I was just going to say the exact same thing. We need to start rotating, I guess.
I think it works. I think it's fine. I think I'm going to continue doing this and loving every minute. So this week, my amazing Oscar caliber beautiful miracle of film that I chose to make them watch is a little 90s action movie called Broken Arrow. Yeah! Christian Slater, John Travolta, stealth pilots carrying live nukes, mayhem ensues. Oh, this movie. I don't even know what to say. Okay, I do want to give a little caveat in that I hadn't seen this movie in probably 15 years. But before that time, I've seen it like 20 times. So we can judge my youthful indiscretions, if you will. But I can understand if there's some complaints that come from this. But okay, I want to know what you guys thought this movie might be about. Because I know you guys hadn't heard of it at all, right?
No, never heard of it.
Okay, Austin, what did you think it was about?
I had no idea. I had no idea what to even shoot with. When I was looking for it somewhere, I did find that there's a John Wayne movie called Broken Arrow. I was like, maybe it's an adaptation, but then I read the summary for that, and it definitely is not. So I had no idea. I didn't even know what to start. I knew it was about the military, because you told us that last week. I could pretty safely assume there were going to be a lot of explosions. I did ask Blake if he had ever seen it, and he said yes, and that it was kind of like a chase movie. So I decided to guess that it is The Fugitive, but worse.
I mean...
So that was...
Sorry.
I mean, there's parallels for sure. He's like, okay, sure.
It's like
very
the cat
odd
and mouse thing.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, sure. Yeah, I wrapped my head around it. Took me a second. Okay, I'm with you. Close. Okay. Jen?
So I went on a journey. My first initial guess, based on Jackie had said there was military, and you compared it to something like Top Gun in terms of tone, where it wasn't comedy, it was more serious. So I took that in my head to mean that they were fighter pilots, which I guess turned out to be a good choice. So I wrote, rival fighter pilots have to team up to save the world from ... terrorists? I'm picturing lots of explosions, aerial fights, and some overdramatic monologues. However, when I went to watch it, I found the old version from the 1950s, like Austin mentioned, and then I was trying to find the correct one, and I was looking to see if it said the year or John Travolta or something to know I had the right link, but I caught a glimpse of the synopsis, and I saw the words park ranger, and I had a meltdown thinking that this movie was about John Travolta, the fighter pilot, and Christian Slater, the park ranger, going on a mission. And then it starts with them boxing, and I was like, what am I watching? It threw me for so many loops.
Yeah, I definitely did the IMDb check in the first scene. Is this right?
Oh, boy. I kind of think I love it the best that you guys have nothing to go on. I'm excited about this. Some movies you have a general idea, some you know perfectly, but this is a fresh slate, which is very exciting.
I asked Blake if he wanted me to wait to watch it with him, and he was like, no, that's okay.
So was Austin.
He'd seen it,
He
though.
missed out. Once he listens to this episode, he'll be like, sign me up, military. Which was what I thought after seeing it. Okay, so Broken Arrow. It's a movie where, unbelievably, John Travolta and Christian Slater are stealth fighter pilots, the best of the best. They're doing training runs over the States with people are trying to see if they can catch them on radar and all these things. And on this particular night, they're carrying 2 live nukes so that they can test whether the nuclear imaging shows up on all these satellites and tests and whatever. So they need live nukes to do it. Little did they know, John Travolta is planning to steal the nukes because he's a bad dude. He's been passed over for promotion and he's all angry about it and he smokes all the time. He's a bad guy. So he tries to steal them. Christian Slater ejects, and with the help of a plucky park ranger, played by Samantha Mathis, for some sexy wild tension, they're chasing John Travolta all around the desert and stealing the nukes back and hiding them. And chase is correct. They chase and chase and chase, and then they chase some more. So it's amazing. I don't even know how to explain my connection to this movie, which is so weird to be so deeply connected to such a frivolous, superficial movie. But we saw this movie, my whole family, we saw it with my dad, and we had one of those weekends where we did all these activities. And I remember one day, a Saturday, we did seeing this movie. We saw Broken Arrow, and then we went and played laser tag for a really long time, or what seemed like a really long time in my child's mind. And I remember that after seeing this movie, I was so into it that I named myself after the character when I was laser tagging.
Oh, nice.
I was Riley Hale, which is Christian Slater, thank you. And it was like a really great day, positive memories, so it's stuck in my brain. And then, I mean, it was a kick-ass movie. I love this movie. And I think it was probably one of the first-ish times that I saw like a super 90s action movie. So it pulled me in hard.
So we have this movie to maybe thank for some of this podcast content.
Dear John Woo, I owe you one. So this movie opens with the gentleman boxing.
Yeah.
Do we believe this scene at all?
Well,
Do other films look like they know how to box?
My very first note was, I wrote down the quote, John Travolta says, you show your opponent one thing and then you do something else. And I was like, I think this is going to be how the movie ends. I think this will be the key to solving the problem.
They say rope-a-dope like 6 times. So you're like,
Yeah.
Gee, will that mean something later?
Yeah.
I do not know. John Woo is so subtle. And like the whole them competing in a boxing ring with the lights blacked out around, like they're so focused on each other and they're so competitive. And John Travolta's trying to like teach him how to be a quote unquote good boxer or whatever, but Riley Hale is like, no, I could do it my own way. Like it's all so blatant.
Yeah.
It is, but because I was so confused by that scene, I wasn't absorbing a lot of it. I was still trying to figure out like how these two even know each other, because I thought one of them had to have been the park ranger. So I didn't realize yet that they were both pilots, and this was just how they blow off steam, by having bets on boxing matches where I try to teach you and also kick your ass at the same time. Like,
Jen's having one of the moments that I had last time with Evil Dead, and I refused
exactly.
to go with the idea that it was a zombie movie.
I was like, okay, so Christian Slater's got to be the park ranger, and then they're putting on their uniforms, and I was like, he gets fired and becomes a park ranger. Like,
I'm so happy you saw the words park ranger and it made your head explode. I'm so happy.
It's the first note I wrote is park ranger with 3 question marks.
Did it help you once they were flying over Utah? Did you then understand
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yeah, once they were flying, then I was like, okay, someone else is the park ranger and one of the guys in the plane is going to be a bad guy. Got it.
Yeah. I feel like the second you see John Travolta zipping up his flight suit excessively slowly and then smoking a cigarette, you're like, bad. He's bad.
We really need to talk about John Travolta. I have thoughts.
Let's talk about John Travolta. Let's jump into
let's go right into
the
it.
actors.
Well, I mean, what do you guys think of John Travolta as a villain? Because he just, in general, creeps me out and kind of, like, I don't like him at the best of times. But I also thought his villain was really irritating. Is that jumping too far ahead? I didn't think he was a particularly engaging villain.
I think that's fair. This movie was one of the first things I saw John Travolta in, so he's always creeped me out and kind of irritated me. But yeah, his character's name is Vic Deakins, whatever kind of name that is. And, like, he is genuinely not a scary villain.
No.
It's an action movie villain. Like, you hate him because, like, he's supposed to be a little irritating. Again, this is like the action movie trope where you have to hate him enough to be happy when he dies. Like, he can't be like a likable kind of villain, or like a he's got the moral high ground on this one type of villain. He's like the money, I hate everyone, I'm gonna murder you. So you want him to die. So he's good at being irritating and hateable.
I have two things about John Travolta, the villain. First, if you remember in our episode on The Fifth Element, we were talking about Gary Oldman. I said I really enjoy when a villainous character is just over-the-top, ridiculous nonsense. So that aspect of John Travolta, I was on board with. I'm like Jackie said, I don't need a good, realistic villain. It's fine when they come along, but in a movie like this, why not have him just be an insane, weird choices, over-the-top? Why not? You know, why not? That's half the fun. The main issue that I had, so I don't know if you guys picked up on the score. So anytime John Travolta was being creepy, there was a really specific score that was kind of in the background. I looked this up because it was driving me crazy because I was like, this is from Scream.
Yes!
And I looked it up and they use it in Scream 2. And because I was writing down, I'm like, this is when Gale and Dewey are having conversations. This is their like flirty banter score. But it's from Broken Arrow from when John Travolta's being creepy, so I couldn't take it seriously because it's from Scream 2.
Every time I heard that theme, I was like, I have heard this before. And I could kind of visualize it, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was from. But I was like, I have heard this before somewhere. And then, yeah, I saw that it was in Scream 2, and I was like, that's what it was.
It took me a couple times of hearing it, and then I was like, Gale and Dewey, they're talking. This is like literally the score from these scenes.
I am impressed that you were able to identify.
Super impressed.
I've seen the Scream movies a lot, you guys.
I mean,
two questions.
Yeah.
Sorry, did Broken Arrow come out first?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Two, not a question, a statement. I've never seen Scream 2, so I had no clue. Very excited to see it now.
I'm gonna find a video that has like that score and send it to you, just so you can see the difference in the tone of the scenes. Because legit in Scream 2, it's like the funny, jokey, bantery parts. So I'm like, I couldn't take him as the creepy villain seriously because they were playing the Dewey from Scream score.
Is it kind of Western-y sounding?
Yeah, a little, yeah.
Because I wasn't, like, I can't picture what you're talking about, but I was aware of the score as a whole and how, like, banjo twangy it was and weird choices. But I wanted to see what Austin thought of the score.
That was pretty much it, because I was literally going to mention, like, there was a part of it that was so familiar, and it was a little irritating. So that's really funny. Well, that was a big piece of trivia that I had, just
I'm sorry, but it
thrown out right at the beginning.
If you read through my page of notes, you would see me trying to work it out, where I was like, what is this score? Why does this score feel weird? And then, like, is this from Scream? And then I had to stop and look it up because I was like, this is driving me insane. Yeah. And it is, like, literally, they just use the music again in Scream 2, and I don't know why.
I was going to say, does anyone have an explanation for that? It's the same guy who did the scores?
It's the same piece. They just said part of the music from Broken Arrow was reused in other movies, so I guess people just really liked it.
Connected, you guys. We're all connected to this movie, whether you want to be or not.
Yeah, but that just, back to John Travolta being a villain, that just took me right out of any of his attempts at being creepy.
Right. And he's like a weird villain too, because he's creepy by virtue of the fact that he's John Travolta, and he's creepy, but he's not like a creepy villain. He's just kind of like some weird combo between way over the top and also nothing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant by not engaging. Like, I almost would have preferred if he had been more over the top and made more of a choice to be more outrageous. Because that at least would have been something to latch onto, but I felt like he was going for more of the, like, serious, witty one-liner, menacing type villain. But
like unflappable. Like, right, nothing bothers me.
But he wasn't getting there. And I was like, I need a Hans Gruber type, you know?
I'm fanning myself
Don't we
on
all?
Hans Gruber.
Don't we all?
Right. Hans Gruber has tons about him, right? Like, he's sophisticated and smart and clever and classy, and, like, he's upper echelon. Yeah,
and he does the clever one-liners, but
I
didn't feel like any of them landed here with John Travolta.
Yeah. Honestly, like, his character summed up to me where just spoiler alert to the movie, they drop the nukes and crash the stealth bomber. And so then the financing guy's like, where's that lunatic? Why hasn't he shown up yet? And then he's like, well, that's a very unkind thing to say. And then he slowly walks out of the mist while smoking.
I have a note about that.
I was like, that's it. That's the peak. That's it. That's who he is. That's what he brings to this movie. Nothing. The end.
I laughed so hard at that because it was like the voice of God, because he wasn't in the screen, it wasn't in the shot yet, and then he walks into the scene from like 20 feet away over like a mountain, and I'm like, why was his voice so loud, so clear, as if he was standing right next to the guy?
Where was the mist or the smoke coming from?
Yeah,
It was not in any other scene.
I know.
He was like slowly like putting out like extra cigarettes. There's like more smoke around him so he can have like an entrance.
Haha! Surprise!
The strangest thing to me.
But yeah, sort of what you were saying about John Travolta kind of not being enough either way. I kind of felt a lot of the characters were very thinly written.
Yes.
There's not a lot to anyone, so it's kind of just about the action set pieces more or less, and these are the people that are going to get you to them. So yeah, I'm like, I don't think you're not going to get a Hans Gruber from this because no one put as much effort into that part of the script, I think.
You're definitely right, and I think that's definitely underlined by the fact that you don't really know anyone's names. Like, they very offhandedly name the two main characters Deacon and Hale, and you just know that because they converse and also they're in the military when they're called by their last name. You don't know Park Ranger's name until the literally last second of the
Isn't it Terry? Did I make that up?
No, it's
No,
Terry,
it is,
but
but they say it at the end.
Oh, I caught it at the beginning. What did I miss? I actually caught
Oh,
something?
sorry,
Oh.
yeah, you did catch it. She says it when she's radioing her dispatch. Someone
Yeah,
does
because
call
in
her
my
Terry.
notes I put her in as Terry the whole time.
But for me, I think I never think of her as any name. You know,
Right.
like that name doesn't mean anything. It's not connected to this movie, really. It's just like,
yeah.
he
And
never
Christian
says,
Slater
"Help me,
doesn't know her
Terry."
name.
No, never, not. And which is so insane because it's like, wouldn't you need to be like, "Hey, Terry, come over here and help me"? He's like, "Hey,
girl.
yeah, come here. Bring a gun, please."
Yeah, I didn't catch her name, and I genuinely thought they'd never said it, so at one point I was like, does this woman not have a name? And it was around the time, I think, when Christian Slater is, like, found the good guys again, and he's like, what about the girl, the civilian? We have to save her. And I'm like, yeah, because you never asked her name. She doesn't know your name either. Like, who are you to each other? But you just, like, went through all this bonding experience. Like, not once you said, by the way.
Literally, there's hours of footage cut of them walking through the desert.
True.
So it's like, maybe you talk about your life or your family or your name, anything. But, I mean, Christian Slater's character is not a very smart dude either. He's, for two, like, people who are stealth bomber pilots, okay? You got to be smart, okay? You got to be, like, a genius level intellect to be put in charge of a $2 billion plane. And yet, these two are posts, and they beat their heads against posts repeatedly. It's ridiculous how stupid Christian Slater comes off in this movie. He is supposed to be smart, and he barely cracks the level of normal conversation. Like, he's struggling so hard at some points with his lines, with trying to convey. He has to tell her to, like, do one thing because one fairly obvious result, and he can't convey it. He's so wooden. He drives me crazy in this movie, even though I chose him as my favorite character. Watching it again, I was like, oh, you're really, really, really bad at acting.
I did write in my notes at one point that just Christian Slater means nothing to me. Like, I have no connection to him. I know that he was so many people's, like, dreamboat, like, huge 90s crush. I have no connection with him, so yeah. Maybe I wasn't seeing it the way you were seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, I had a huge crush on him at the time. This has died from watching this movie again, where I was like, oh, I guess I require something other than a pretty face at this point in my life. Back then, I did not require. Put him in, like, I gotta say, I like him in a jumpsuit. I can't hide that I like a man in a military jumpsuit. I think this is not news to anyone.
No.
He looks good. But he's just, yeah, there's nothing there. There's nothing behind his eyes. He's not able to carry the movie the way they expected him to. And he can't even play against John Travolta, okay? He can't even match John Travolta. What does that say about him? Having said that, I still find him likable.
This is the whole thing with this movie in general, is that we kind of already touched on it with the John Travolta, where it's kind of just not quite this, but not quite that. And I feel like Christian Slater's character is kind of the same. And that's just kind of how I felt about the whole movie. There's nothing in it for me to really like hate. Fair enough, but like there's also really nothing in it for me to latch onto or get invested in. So I was just very neutral this whole time.
I mean, I understand that for sure, because it's not even sure if it wants to be funny or try to be like irreverent. They touch on it briefly a couple times, but then they try to steer away from it into just explosions. So
the tone's a little wonky.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. Now, the true star of the movie, upon rewatching it as an adult, Samantha Mathis.
Hell yeah.
Kick ass, right? She's cool.
I struggled because I also think she was a bad actress. There wasn't a ton to go with the character, obviously. But I liked all of her, like, action scenes. Like, I liked that she was a badass. But I just found myself kind of wishing, like, that this could have been a Sandra Bullock in Speed type situation, you know? Like, she didn't have the charisma. I don't think she was particularly strong in a lot of scenes. Like, acting-wise, not, like, physical strength-wise. And yeah, like, none of the characters, like I said before, were much other than, like, a couple notes on a page. Like, you are the hero. You are the villain.
Yeah.
So
it's the same problem, I feel like.
I felt like I wanted more from her.
I could see that for sure, but I think to me, she was the best out of any of them. And again, she's playing against a literal piece of wet cardboard. So
which is another thing with your movies, Jackie.
I know.
But also, so did Sandra Bullock, and look how she turned it out.
Are you calling Keanu Reeves a piece of wet cardboard?
That's
you better watch
I'm
yourself.
calling Demolition Man, come on.
Oh, okay.
Thank God.
We both went
also,
Swede there.
Okay.
I know, I was
Keanu
really upset.
is a national treasure.
Thank you. Also, Sylvester Stallone in Demolition Man is at his height. That's the best he's going to do. So just, like, maybe give him a little bit of a break. Don't worry. We're going to watch Cliffhanger one of these days. We'll have a whole other discussion. Back to this movie.
I did enjoy, like, trying to go through Terry's day as just starting the day as a typical park ranger, you know, doing her thing, kind of nerdy about it, you know, it's great. And then all of a sudden she's an action hero. Like,
right?
That took a turn. That day took a turn.
Maybe this movie isn't military propaganda, it's park ranger appreciation propaganda.
It did make me appreciate park rangers.
Right? She saves the world. Like, honestly, this movie, you're supposed to think Christian Slater saves the world. Legit, Terry saves the world more than he does, like 12 times.
Oh,
she
yeah.
proves to be a harder ass, more capable, physically stronger, braver. She's like, she could have handled this without him, okay?
Yeah.
You get ejected out of your plane, whatever, who cares? Terry's on the job. She's coming for you.
She just needed him to tell her what was going on, and then she's like, okay, I'll handle it from here.
Yeah.
Right? You go home.
I got this. You go die in the mine, which you would have without me.
He would have died so many times. She does everything. She, like, handles the train. Anyway, we'll get there. But she just, every situation that comes at her, she figures it out with very little assistance.
It's true. I was slightly annoyed by their first scene together where they meet and they're threatening each other. She has a knife. He has her gun, right? And has her around the neck or something and says something about how you're missing the bigger picture here. And she was like, well, this isn't a good way to convince me or something. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like this could easily be solved by a real quick conversation. Like, do you not have any piece of ID on you? Like, something?
But also, I agree with you, but to your point, like, she started it by pointing a gun at him and saying, you're under arrest. And I'm like, who is he? Like, you don't know what's happening. You just saw a man being ejected from a plane. How about, like, are you hurt? Like, do you need medical assistance? Who are you? Why are you here? I just felt like that whole scene was just aggressive from the top, and there was no need for it on either end. Like,
no, exactly. It was just at a 10 automatically.
Honestly, I wrote the exact same thing. I'm like, why did they attack each other out of the blue?
Yeah.
And I'm like trying to justify it in my head. And I'm like, maybe he thinks he can't trust anybody because Deacon obviously planned this, and maybe he has like sleeper people. So I think him attacking her could theoretically make sense. Because yeah, she's pointing a gun at him, screaming,
Fair.
but like,
it's a stretch.
It is a stretch. She's wearing a park ranger uniform.
That's what I mean. Just like, does no one have ID in this movie?
You're right. If they had talked, sure, much less interesting visually for me.
Yeah.
Because I enjoyed that scene where they like punch each other and they roll down a hill and they end up in like a standoff. And she shows that she's got a knife too, like, and she's not afraid to use it.
Yeah.
Again,
yeah.
introduction to Terry the Badass.
Exactly. I was
100%.
going to say, I think it's to introduce her as a badass and as someone who is his equal in that way, where, like, she can fight, she can take him on. So it's like, okay, they're going to be on the same page for the rest of this. She can keep up. It's fine. But I just didn't think it was a necessary, like, believable reaction for either of them upon their first meet to be like, let's try to kill each other.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Very agreed.
Well, much like the rope-a-dope nonsense, this movie is not subtle.
Nope. Also,
No.
speaking of not subtle, did you catch any of the very blatant product placement?
I don't know that I did.
Because it struck me that John Travolta drinks a Coke like 5 times.
Oh, I did pick up something about a Coke, and I think there was also a couple close-ups on a watch.
Yeah, I don't know what brand it was, but
Yeah.
I think this is not the first movie, obviously, but it was starting to get real unsubtle. Like, he literally goes, I want a Coke. Ah! And I was like, come on.
Well,
John Travolta.
I saw, while we're on the topic of sponsorships, did you guys notice that John Travolta took his military uniform off after he was revealed to be the traitor? Because the military is obviously sponsoring this movie. We've talked about that a lot in other movies. He had to take his uniform off because that did not reflect well.
But
I
he
mean-
was still a military person who was a traitor and a terrorist, so...
Yeah. And
Taking
he...
the uniform off doesn't mean anything.
Honestly, too, though, I'm surprised they even let him be a pilot because he's not... The second he gets on screen, like, he's not representing the military well. He's, like, disrespectful. He's smoking. He's bad-mouthing the chain of command, right? Like, it's... He doesn't really portray any kind of pilot in a good light.
This movie honestly didn't strike me as too much of a military movie. Like, I understand it is, but it didn't scream military.
Yeah, it definitely got way worse as the years went by. This was, like, more of what 90s military action movies were. It was more subtle propaganda. Like, there's probably, like, flashing... You know that Simpsons?
Yes.
Yeah.
Join
It's
the
like,
Navy.
Join that Navy! That's what happens. But it's hidden behind an ad for Coke, starring John Travolta. Back to the movie. The film, I shall say.
Yeah, back to the cinematic
The cinematic masterpiece, yeah.
Can we talk about the scene in the plane where you find out John Travolta's the bad guy because it zooms in on his eyes?
Totally. The best. He's like, he's talking and looking, and then all of a sudden he tilts his head down, so he's looking up the top of his eyes, and it's like, douche, and you're like, oh no. So subtle.
I was so confused. It's like, what is happening?
Yeah. That was something, like, I think the director did that a lot throughout the movie, just, like, the extreme zoom-ins and close-ups for, like, dramatic effect, but that was just the first one, I think, and I was like, what the fuck?
Honestly, he could have been twirling a pencil-thin mustache.
Yeah.
It was so cliche. He's like, oh, I am evil.
Yeah, and it's like, as Christian Slater turns around and it, like, zooms in on John Travolta's evil face, then he, like, pulls out his gun, and it's like, oh, he's the bad guy.
Oh, no. Yes, it is a repetitive theme of them, like, struggling for dominance between each other. Who's the pack leader or whatever. So the boxing, and then the fight in the cockpit, and then the constant mention of the $20 bill throughout
Oh my
the
god,
entire
that
movie.
drove me crazy.
Oh my god.
Didn't it? I know. He takes... Okay, Riley Hale, after he ejects from a stealth bomber and almost dies and knows that the nukes are stolen, takes the time to look meaningfully out into the distance and put a $20 bill under a rock to be like, John Travolta will get this someday.
Because they've been
You
betting
win.
on boxing, just for clarity. If no one's seen this movie, this is a trend
Yeah.
that pops up about 17 times where they just keep betting each other $20 on
Yeah.
their fights.
The one Jackie just mentioned is the one that drove me the most
Yeah.
crazy, because, like, no one's getting that $20. You just threw it in the wind, basically. What was the point?
Also, you have very limited resources. You literally have the money in your jumpsuit. Don't you think you'll need to buy something, eat something, go somewhere? Like, you need the money that you have in your pocket. You're an idiot. He's like, goodbye, money. I don't care about you. I was thinking that maybe someday someone would find it and be really happy, but that was not his intent, so it doesn't count.
Or maybe, like, Park Ranger Terry, as she was walking up, saw him put it there and was like, oh, I'm gonna get $20 later.
Yeah, someone's littering.
Yeah.
It'd be amazing.
That's why she pulled the gun. She was like,
there we go.
You can't litter in a national park.
Honestly, that makes more sense.
Right? I would respect that. It doesn't mean, like, I didn't hate it because it just, again, it's meaningless. It's dumb, it's silly, it's male posturing in a 90s action
Yeah,
movie.
it just
What are you going to say?
made me roll my eyes.
But the whole time, you're right, they do it like 7 or 8 times where they both meaningfully look at like a folded $20 bill and think about it and be like, yes, you win. To the dirt, to the wind. Like, no one is hearing you. You're not taught, like, you would be doing this in your head if this wasn't a movie. We don't need to see it.
Yeah. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to shoot down a helicopter with a handgun?
Okay.
Great question.
Very interesting question. So, no. What they are positing in this aspect is that he shot through the under bubble glass and shot the pilot, which I think is insane because helicopters are flying fast through the air and things need to be able to bounce off their windshield without killing people. Like, I'm pretty sure they have powerful, if not bulletproof, glass. I also do not believe that Christian Slater could have made that shot, which is very difficult. And I also don't believe that wussy little 6-shooter gun that a park ranger carries is powerful enough to do any of this.
Right.
So, no, you're right. That was stupid. Even stupider is the fact that Terry is like, I'm going to be bait, bye! And they don't even talk about a plan, and she just runs up to a helicopter and starts waving it down, and these are terrorists. They will shoot you.
Yes, but like the fact that the guy was just like, oh, well, where's the one we're looking for? I'm like, but he would just shoot you and then circle back around and wait for the guy, like.
And it wasn't a hard plan. She'd be like, okay, I'll go distract him. You shoot him.
Yeah.
Instead, she's like, bye, I'm running. And he's like, what the fuck? I haven't even loaded this gun yet. What do you expect me to do to help you?
And so then she's standing like 10 feet away from a exploding helicopter.
Also, how would she know that there was like an under bubble window that he could have shot through? Like, what are you thinking? The plan was flawed in that it did not exist. I hated that. Honestly, I remember when I was a kid being like, oh my gosh, she's so cool. But now I'm like, oh my god, you're so dead. Like, you should be dead 100 times over.
Yeah.
And then also, so she proves herself in that moment because she's like, look, I'm going to go do it. I don't need your permission. I'm a badass. I know what I'm doing. So I can see why that's appealing. But in doing so, she then gets almost chopped up by the back rotor of the helicopter, and Christian Slater has to save her.
Yep.
I don't care because it's this movie. Honestly, like, what do you expect? But I don't like that he saves her. She didn't need it. Like, she also does the thing where she sits and stares at the rotor coming down on her, and he has to pull her out of the way. I'm like,
that's what I was gonna say. Like, she takes the initiative to run up there to put some sort of plan into action, and then as the helicopter is like exploding and crashing, like, no part of her brain is like, this was a possibility. I should make sure I can get away quickly, or, you know, it's coming towards me. I should turn and run. She's kind of just like, oh no, he shot down the helicopter that's directly in front of my face. Like, what did you think was happening, Terry?
Yeah, you're in the splash zone, girl. You gotta get out of there. And it's like, you know it's gonna explode. I mean, I guess she doesn't. We know it's going to because it's a John Woo movie, but like, yeah, you should expect that a helicopter will be falling out of the sky in the vicinity soon.
And this movie has 2 of those moments.
It has multiple. At least 3 helicopters explode that I can think of.
I only counted 2.
4 now that I'm thinking of it.
Oh,
Let's
God.
name them. That one. The one that gets hit by the electromagnetic pulse.
Yep.
The one that had Delroy Lindo in it when they were chasing the train. And the one that was on the train that they leaked the gas out, and when he started, it exploded.
Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised that Austin considered it neutral, because there are many vehicles, many explosions, many gunshots, and many chases.
I mean, it was leaning more towards negative than
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I knew this one, like, I think this is a good one for me, because I can't take this personally, because I realize the ridiculousness of it. And even though I love it, I don't feel it's offensive, because it's just, it's very silly. It's weird.
Yeah, and maybe I don't think I missed anything. There wasn't anything in it that, like, offended me or hasn't aged well in terms of...
Right? There's not a lot of...
Pretty harmless, I think.
A lot of smoking indoors. That's the part that didn't age well.
It's gross, right? Like, everyone's smoking in, like, briefing meetings and inside helicopters and change rooms. They smoke... John Travolta smokes everywhere.
Yeah. Well, he's a villain. He's a bad guy.
Bad, too. But you just made a really interesting point, Austin, is that almost every movie that's 20 plus years old has something like that is now quite offensive. And you're just like, oh no, that didn't age well. But this movie, like, is so not, like, you're right, it's nothing. They didn't take a single risk or anything that could backfire and come back and be bad. Like, they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't
And I
do
think
anything.
it's because, again, John Woo was just so focused on the action. He's like, I'm not gonna have my characters making offensive jokes because that's gonna take away from me blowing shit up, you guys. Like, I want to be blowing shit up. Like, why even give them dialogue, you know? Just get them on the train.
I agree. Me and John Woo were like kindred souls. Okay, so we've covered pretty much the beginning of the movie. John Travolta dumps the nukes. John Travolta steals the nukes. He has an army of dudes who all want to get money for the nukes. This is where it kind of is a question. So in The Rock, Ed Harris is clearly never intending to hurt anyone, right? He was trying to get money from this is controversial, but in my opinion, he was never intended to hurt anyone. He just wanted the money to give to his army buddies and disappear. This is the difference. This is why I can't ever hate Ed Harris. Like, to me, he's still good. And John Travolta is so clearly bad. Like, he wants death and destruction at all costs. Like, his goal is death. Well, Ed Harris is just to get money, right?
But again, that's because Ed Harris is a good villain in The Rock.
Yeah, he is a good villain.
You know, there's more layers to him than just, I want money and death and destruction.
That's the thing. I wondered, were they trying to give him a layer by saying that he just wanted to kill people? Like, he just wanted death and destruction? Like, it wasn't really about the money? Is that an attempt at death?
Well, and they kept making mentions about, like, him having a god complex and, like, being...
Yeah. That's kind of what I got. I mean, again, it wasn't very well developed, but I kind of thought his villain motivations was just, like, a power trip, essentially. Like, he had the god complex, he liked being in charge of the nukes and knowing that if he wanted to, he could kill everyone, and that was kind of just his motivation for, well, now I'll sell them to the highest bidder, and I could wipe out a city, and no one would ever even know it was me. Like, just that kind of, I can do anything, I have all this power, and everyone has to listen to what I say. Like...
Yeah, you're right. That's him in a nutshell. Shit. Yeah, that's him in a nutshell, for real.
I just, Jackie was mentioning The Rock and comparing it to The Rock, so I wanted to compare it to The Rock because they dropped into a mine.
Yes!
And I thought we were going to have a race in the mine carts, and we didn't, and I was very sad.
Okay, we all wrote the same notes, evidently.
Yeah.
Apparently. Okay, so yeah. We don't really talk about how John Travolta's obviously been planning this for a long time. He has a whole plan, including embedding a sleeper agent, if you will, in the army response team that comes to try and find the nukes after they lose them. Mm-hmm. That's that guy's name's Kelly. He sucks. I don't like that guy because he kills his commanding officer in cold blood. Not cool.
There was a lot of killing in cold blood in this. I was surprised.
Right?
I was like, for a Jackie movie, there's a lot of innocent death.
Yeah,
honestly,
agreed.
We'll get there in the low point, but yes. And in a lot of different ways, and I have some stuff to say about that. But yes, there's too much innocent civilian, or not even civilian, just innocent, needless, like cold-blooded death. Like, there's one thing to have a shootout or a fight, and you're defending yourself and you die. I mean, yeah, you're standing up at least. This is a lot of like, surprise, you're dead. Yeah, it's just not cool. So yeah, right. I don't know. Maybe this was the movie that I first saw when I was a kid that made me realize I didn't like that. But I still don't. Anywho, so now his crew is all intact. I mean, Terry and Riley are picking them off, sort of. They keep, like, John Travolta's team, again, does the classic team bad guy thing where they split off a lot. And I'm like, just stick together, guys. It's like the Boy Scout thing. Just stick together. You don't have to keep pairing off and getting shot. But yeah, I mean...
And I think a bit of ego comes into it, too, because they could just be sticking with the plan and survive. But Travolta's like, we gotta find Hale. Someone go find him and kill him. And it's like, you could just ignore him and carry on with your plan. Like, what's he gonna do? He's in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're the ones with the nukes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally. I don't understand the geography of this movie. Because at one point, they can see these trucks way in the distance. And they're like, oh, those are the trucks with the nukes. I can tell. That one's heavy. And then literally within 2 seconds of dialogue, they're then running up to the truck and jumping on the roof. And I'm like, how did you... And also, he's running, like, I don't know why you see it this way, but you see it from behind him, and he's running towards the trucks on top of a mountain. And I'm like, they can see him.
I was just gonna say the same thing. Like, all these scenes are of, like, sprawling, rocky desert with absolutely nothing around. So you can see anyone coming at any point. But then also, like, they go a couple feet this way, and there's an abandoned mine. And then they go a couple feet that way, and there's a river. So I'm like, what is this desert?
I know, and it's totally flat, and yet he finds some way to get higher than the truck and then to jump onto the truck. I don't know. There's also a lot of stupid things they do in this movie in terms of unrealistic physicality, i.e. he runs after a Hummer and literally jumps into the back of it. And I'm like...
I did enjoy that because I was like, okay, that car's going to hit him because there's no way that he could catch up to the moving vehicle. But then he did!
He does, yeah. He doesn't even get the cool, like, jump backwards onto the hood of the second Humvee and then jump into the trunk.
Doesn't he also catch the gun at the same time?
I hated that. Okay. Why would she throw her only weapon into the air at a running man whom does not, there's no prearranged signal that this is going to happen, and then he catches it?
And also, like, why would she assume he could catch it? Clearly he's part superhero, because he also catches a live grenade at one point. But, like, he's just a pilot. Like, I'm not saying military pilots aren't well trained, but, like, you don't know what kind of things he has done. He could have just been a pilot. He could have never done hand-to-hand combat before in his life.
Right,
he could
and
not
also
be a part-time sharpshooter. Like,
she is sitting on the roof of a Humvee. She has a way better chance of shooting that gun and hitting something than a man who is running, shooting over his shoulder, jumping into the trunk of a moving vehicle. Why does she like, he needs it more than I do. Here you go. Just be like, I'll help you. Bang, bang. I shot the tire. I win. Yeah.
Why did they shoot the tire?
I don't. I honestly, I wonder if there's some kind of Humvee tire material that I'm not familiar with. Like maybe their tires are super strong because they're military trucks. Maybe.
I thought you were meaning like maybe the tires also sponsored the movie and they're like, we can't be shown being destroyed. Maybe. Need a line like, these Humvee tires are indestructible.
Honestly, this could be a commercial for Humvees because those Humvees do not stop the entire movie.
Yeah, one of them gets like practically blown up and they keep driving.
Yeah, they just pull the doors off and keep going, which makes them look even cooler. So...
Oh yeah, that was also where Humvees he has gasoline and dynamite that he puts together, but those were also being stored in the back of the Humvee with the nukes, and I felt like that was a disaster waiting to happen.
I mean, it was a flare, not a dynamite.
Flare, thank you.
Yeah, but still, yes. Don't put gasoline beside. I mean, if the nuke goes off, the gasoline's secondary. It's like, well...
I was thinking more the gasoline and the flares accidentally go off and set off the nuke.
So that's interesting. They make sure to say in the beginning of the movie that these nukes, unless they're armed, could sit in a burning pool of gasoline for 6 hours without any consequences.
Okay.
That's just a throwaway comment they make to explain why they basically shoot the nukes, drop them down in mine shafts, smash them into stuff, trucks smash them. They fall out of a plane into the ground. So they just want you to know that, like, these are hardy. They're okay.
That's a good explanation, because I did think that was a bad plan. I also did think it was dynamite, not a flare. But I was like, you're definitely going to blow up this nuke and accidentally set it off, you morons.
Which is kind of funny, too, because John Travolta keeps saying, do not shoot the nuke.
Yeah.
So I think when he's saying, do not shoot the nuke, in my head, he's more worried about being able to arm it later.
Yeah.
The circuitry, not the nuclear weapon.
I mean, I feel like in general, don't shoot the nuke is good. Good
Great advice. That could be your life motto. Don't shoot the nuke. All situations applicable.
I don't know, Jackie, if you have any like nuke knowledge you can drop on us, pun intended. But the part where they're like, we're gonna put it deep enough down in the mine that when it goes off, nothing is affected or hurt, and there's no like nuclear fallout or anything. What science? Can you science me that? Because that did not feel right.
Okay, there's multiple problems with this.
Wrong. Because also they're connected to a river and there's all the wildlife, but he's like, see, the wildlife is fine, so that means the nuke that just went off didn't hurt anything because it was underground, question mark?
Okay, so the way they explain it is because this is a copper mine, and the heat and pressure fuses all the copper into a big sphere and basically contains it. So first of all, if this was a mine that still had copper, it would not be shut down. You shut down a mine usually when you have exhausted the resource you're trying to get. They explain that by saying they hit the river. It does make sense that when something is intensely heated like that, it can fuse. Like, fusion makes sense. The concept of this mine doing that does not make sense. It's like, you're right. It has a very thin line between the river and its contents. It doesn't make sense. It's not enough. It shouldn't have enough copper to do it. They'd all be dead, burned, blind, and dying, like Delroy Lindo said. Wouldn't have worked. My summary.
When he was kind of explaining that as the plan, because I think what happens is Christian Slater thinks he's disarming the nukes, but John Travolta rewired them, so it means that he's arming the nukes.
When could he have done that?
How did he do that? Because I know Christian Slater says, like, because we're the pilots, we have to know how to, like, arm, disarm, or destroy if necessary, or something. But I guess John Travolta just took some courses on the weekends on how to completely change all of the wiring. Like, you're not a scientist, you're a pilot. You just have to know the basics.
Yeah, the pilots know, press these buttons in this order. They don't know how to, like, reconnect, strip, put them arming mechanisms. Like, come on. I think that's pretty complicated. Maybe I'm wrong, but it is actual rocket science.
Yes.
So maybe it's unbelievable that John Travolta trickied them up. I have a lot of trouble with that. But I mean, it's a nice twist because then he thinks he's disarming it, but actually he's arming it. Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it worked for that, but I didn't give it too much thought.
And that brings us to the whole in the mine scene, which is very silly, very over the top. Like, they have the classic 90s action movie man to man, like, you're nuts. No, you're nuts. What are you going to do, huh? Shoot me. Like, they have these big monologues where they explain what they're doing and their posturing, and it's distasteful. I'm going to say it. I didn't enjoy their little chat behind the stones.
Yeah.
It did bring me one of my favorite moments in the movie that you referenced, where a guy is holding a grenade and he's above Christian Slater, and then he gets shot and he drops the grenade, and Christian Slater from prone position catches it and then whips it at John Travolta before it blows up. And I was like, yes, so good. I love a catch a grenade and throw a grenade, i.e. The Rock. Do we see the connection again? It happens in The Rock.
Was this movie just a worse version of The Rock instead of a worse version of The Fugitive?
I think it might be.
Ooh.
It's closer.
Until we were just talking about it, I didn't realize, but that totally happens to Nicolas Cage. They throw a grenade in his bin, he picks it up, and he throws it back at the bad guys.
Yeah.
Like, this is a total...
At least Nicolas Cage picks it up. This guy just literally caught it midair and then threw it, and I was like...
It's pretty great.
Again, like, who, like, taught you to do this? You're a military pilot, again, but, like, you have a lot of skills. Like, I would maybe believe this if you were, like, a spy, like, a special ops kind of person.
Totally. Like, they have a lot of training, extensive training, in flying a plane. Right?
Yeah,
like,
I
they
think
expect them to
you have a lot
fly.
of skills. I'm not implying that Christian Slater's pilot is a bad military person. I just mean, I don't think that, like, shooting down helicopters and catching grenades is what they should have been focusing on when you went to Top Gun school.
These are not Jason Bournes. These are not James Bonds. They are not Renaissance military men. They're very focused in knowing, like, lift and drag and press this button for autopilot. That's about it. But yet, I don't even think pilots aren't supposed to be tall. They're not supposed to be broad or built necessarily. Like, they're supposed to be light-ish to keep the weight of a plane reasonably as low as you can.
You're saying that Top Gun, with the notoriously short Tom Cruise, is an accurate film. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah. They survive a nuclear blast. Sure. We've all agreed that is maybe not 100% accurate.
And he's, like, so confident it works. Sorry to keep harping on this, but she's freaking out, like, what if there's radiation? And he's like, there's butterflies, and that means that the radiation didn't get out, so we're fine. And I'm like, no. I call bullshit on all of this.
So cavalier, again, kind of comes off as stupid. Like, yeah, you should be concerned. There could be a tiny radiation
Maybe look
leak.
into this.
Yeah, even John Travolta, where he's like, oh, we're gonna set it off. I'm changing it to 13 minutes, and we're just gonna drive away and wait and see what happens. And I'm like, you're really putting a lot of faith into this abandoned mine.
Yeah.
So much. And, like, there's no way that he could have realistically researched the mine enough to know this and not come off as suspicious. But this does give us the gift, the beautiful gift, Christian Slater in a wet t-shirt. Which is my favorite part of the movie.
Okay.
I'm sorry, he wears a gray t-shirt really well. His biceps are quite big. He hugs her and, like, chafes her arms because she's cold. When I was a teenager, I was like, oh, this is it. They gon' kiss, but they don't.
Can I just say in that scene, too, where she's freaking out, and he's like, you're just shaking because you're cold, let me warm you up. I was like, she's in shock. She's having a panic attack. This isn't cold. She thinks she's dying because you just set off a nuclear bomb.
This has been
true. However, when someone's in shock, you are supposed to warm them up.
Okay, yeah, so it's fair, but he's just like,
You're
it
cold,
felt like
yeah.
he wasn't taking this seriously. And I'm like, other people are upset about the fact that a nuclear bomb went off. You, of course, are not. But maybe realize that she's freaking out.
Yeah, she's clearly having the appropriate reaction.
Yes.
He's like, look, everything's fine. Look, the butterfly, blah, blah. Just stop talking, basically. He's like, just shut up. She's like, okay. And then she snaps out of it. She's like, game again. She's like, yeah, let's run across the desert to a different part of the river and try and catch John Travolta. Like,
okay, I don't know if this is exactly the next part, but can we talk about how she hides out on the boat? When he's like, they're like looking on the boat for shit, and then John Travolta's coming, and so Christian Slater's like, get out of the boat, and jumps into the water. And she instead hides under a tarp in the boat.
And doesn't get found?
Doesn't get found? Was that a plan? Was that her panicking?
No. I guess you didn't see it, but like, they realize John Travolta and his crew are coming up, and Christian Slater like slithers over the edge of the boat into the water. Yeah. And she trips and falls backwards into the boat on her butt. And by the time if she tried to get up again, they would be like totally visible.
I don't know. I mean,
she just pulls the tarp over herself and hides.
I don't know. I did see her trip and fall.
Okay.
I still think she could have slithered out of the boat.
Yeah. I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt because it's Terry. She knows what's up. She knows the odds. She's no fool.
Honestly, but then I couldn't tell for the same reason, because she's Terry and she makes snap decisions and doesn't tell anyone about them. I was like, was this her plan? Like, was she just going to go try to, like, disable a nuclear bomb on her own? Like, she may have at this point.
I guess, but I think she just got stuck and was, like, hiding. And then she's like, I'll just wait until they leave. And then when they started to drive away, she's like, well, fuck it. I'm Terry. I'm going to go jump on the back of this truck.
So this is something that always drives me crazy in movies, that I guess everyone who has a boat has a tarp that they keep thrown over a lumpy, misshapen area of stuff they never use. Because people can always just hide under the tarp, and it's fine. No one notices anything strange, and they never move it or need anything from that area, and never discover you. And I'm just like, what? Like, I feel like if someone was hiding under a tarp in a very small space that I was a part of, I'd like to think I would notice. I would be like, hey, this is different from how we just left it, or
hey, that tarp's moving a little.
Yeah, that tarp's moving. Or like, oh, where did I put my phone? Oh, right, in that box under the tarp.
Yeah, or like, we protected this really important, valuable, fragile stuff with this tarp. We probably want to bring it with us when we leave the boat.
Yeah.
Also, there's not a lot of room to sit in this boat, so I feel like someone would be sitting there, like, kicking in the contents of the tarp over to be like, I gotta sit, like, kick. Oh, there's a human body in there.
Sitting on the tarped area, because I don't know what was supposed to be under it. Maybe it's a bunch of ropes, and they're like, this will count as a seat.
Yeah.
And they're just, and then Terry's, like, squashed underneath, trying to breathe.
Full of problems. She, luckily, does not get sat upon, nor killed. And this serves to get her behind the scenes on the truck/train. So, unfortunately, I mean, I get that in action movies they do this. They put the woman in danger to a degree, and the man has to come to save her. Christian Slater decides that he has to go rescue her because she's a civilian, right? And that's how they bring him back into the melee. But she never comes off as a damsel in distress, which I like. You know, like, she's not being held hostage necessarily all the time. She does get into a little bit of a hostage situation. But like, it's just
she at least tries to make the most of her situation, I suppose.
Right? She starts trying to figure things out. She gets into a fight against a stronger, taller male opponent and kicks his ass without any help, which is rare. Like, they have a lot of women in action movies who will go up against a guy and then get their ass kicked, and it's like, well, honey, at least you tried. But she kills him.
Or there's like, there's one woman on the villain team, so she can fight the one woman on the hero team, and all the other men fight each other, and it's like, oh, thanks for giving us this.
Or there's the Demolition Man route, where you just knock the female unconscious, so you don't have to worry about her the whole fight.
Oh, yeah.
He's protecting her, not the movie we're talking about. But it's nice, right? Like, it's a little bit different in that she makes a decision to go. She makes the decision to try and disarm a nuclear bomb somehow. Like, she's the master of her own fate. And in the end, Christian Slater comes to help her, but it's not necessarily because she needed him. She could have taken care of herself, I think. I still think, too, like, it ends up with John Travolta about to throw her off a train. But I still think she could have got out of it. I don't know. I don't question Terry needing assistance.
Well, she does leap out of the train and grab
It's a pretty
the side
cool move,
rail.
right?
Okay, this whole train fight.
Oh man, Austin's looking up
Yeah.
in the sky.
Let's get into it.
Lord
Austin,
help me.
How
Okay,
did you feel about the train?
Not great. I wrote a note that I'm going to ask, and it's going to sound worse than I mean it to. But I wrote, genuine question. The constant shooting, like, this doesn't bother anyone. It's like, it's genuinely, like, entertaining. Like, it like, keeps you guys engaged and, like, raises tension. Like, genuinely.
I don't know if this movie ever had tension. But yeah, I'm entertained.
Oh,
I want to see what's going to happen. I like the way they're shooting each other and on top of the train, falling down the sides, in between the cars, crawling up the slatted sides of certain types of cars, which happens a lot, surprisingly. Getting kicked through walls.
Yeah, that was another question that I had. Also, why is it so easy for people to walk on top of a train that is moving?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a problem that becomes way bigger in every action movie that I see chronologically, like recently. But yeah, their gravity doesn't apply. They can jump, they can ride on top of every type of vehicle, they can drive every type of vehicle. Like, it goes back to they shouldn't be this well trained and skilled, but they just assume that these guys can do whatever. And you're right, like running on top of a train, fighting on top of a train. At one point he uses some kind of antenna cable and flings off the side and does an arc into the train. So
yeah.
Which, okay, well, finish that out. Kicks someone who goes through a wooden wall and falls off a bridge.
Yeah, that's Kelly.
I gotta say I loved.
I loved it. He even does this crazy weird scream.
Yeah.
And
like, as he's falling, I didn't know what the train was over at this point, and I was like, if it's water, maybe he could survive, but it's not water.
Yeah, and there's a distinct thump.
Yeah,
he's like,
there's a thud. He hit the ground. That man had a horrible death, and it was hilarious.
The reason I think he gets such a horrible death is because he's such a bad dude. He's the one who killed his other, like, army buddies. He was the planted guy in the rescue team. Like, he's, again, we hate this guy, so it's okay for him to fall 100 stories out of a train bridge.
After being kicked out of a wooden train.
Right.
Oh, boy.
The worst part is that he doesn't, like, to me, the worst part is that Christian Slater doesn't, like, slide down the thing. He leaps, like, out.
Yeah.
So, like, out as far as he can, and then it hits the tension point and he swings back in a parabola. Like, it doesn't make sense. If he had done that in real life, he would have held on, jumped straight out, and the cord would have ripped out of his hand, and he would have just fallen. Like, you don't swing back like that. It doesn't happen.
That's the way that they taught them in pilot school.
Right. I mean, pilots have to know, like, angles and geometry, so maybe.
So maybe he did figure that out.
All right, fine.
I also liked the part where, like, John Travolta is going to throw her from the train, I think, so he swings open the train door, and the helicopter with Christian Slater's just there, and I'm like, did no one hear it? How does a helicopter sneak up on you?
Yep.
Surprise, bitch!
Was it in silent mode? Like, what was happening?
What I hate about that scene is Christian Slater's like, I must jump onto the train from the helicopter. And he takes his gun and he goes, cover me. And he hands it to a person in the front seat on the other side of the helicopter. So there's no way that he could shoot backwards and cover him. I'm like, that doesn't work. Like, he's strapped into the pilot seat. He cannot shoot a weapon backwards. But anyway, that's fine. Christian Slater jumps from a helicopter onto a moving train and lands it. He doesn't even, like, bounce. He doesn't even struggle. Like, he doesn't even fall a little off the side and be like, oop, better pull myself back up. He's just like, ha-ha, I'm on the train. And then, a really shitty part of the movie, Delroy Lindo. Okay, we're aware of Delroy Lindo and how cool he is, right?
Yes.
Oh, I have no
So
idea
he's
what words you just said.
That is an actor.
He's the guy who was in charge of the radar team who were trying to track the stealth bomber.
Right, okay.
So he's, like, running the rescue/recovery efforts in Utah. And so he's in the helicopter with Christian Slater. And very needlessly, his helicopter blows up. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, I agree. I was, like, genuinely surprised that happened. I knew they had to get the helicopter out of the way because you need Christian Slater to have the big hero moments and can't have the helicopter, like, saving the day.
Yeah.
So I assumed something was going to happen with them going into the bridge where, like, the helicopter can't follow. Like, you know, in, like, Speed, where all the cop cars were like, the bridge is out, so you have to go on ahead. Then they're like, we're on our own again. I thought it was going to be like that, But instead the helicopter just fucking crashed and they all died. And I was like, that's needlessly dark. They could have just been like, we can't follow that way. There's too many, like, power lines? Trees?
Yeah, or we're out of gas, or like we have slight damage, we gotta go land elsewhere. Like any of these things.
Exactly. Even damage the helicopter and be like, we have to put it down, you're on your own, or something.
I know, Delroy Lindo deserved much better. Even the nameless, faceless helicopter pilot, like they show him struggling a little bit, and you're like, oh, he's doing his best. And then he explodes, and you're like, oh shit, well that, I hope his family's fine with that, like bye.
And because Delroy Lindo, like, his character was the one that was like, do you know what orders are? Good, because I'm about to defy them, because I'm going to take you and we're going to go save the day. Like, he was putting himself on the line to save the world because he trusted that Christian Slater actually knew where the nukes were. And
one of the best lines.
Sorry if I stole that from your quotes.
It's okay. He deserves all the recognition because you're right. He's the one who makes this happen. He's the one on his side and, like, sticking up for what's right. Didn't have to do him like that.
So
he should have survived.
This is where I get confused because, as we've talked about many times, and so I'd hate to be repetitive, but we know that this stuff bores the crap out of me. So we know that I just glazed over. You guys are talking about this, and I'm like, did I watch this scene? Like, I don't remember any of this.
Do you remember Kelly shooting a gun, and then they start to enter a tunnel, and his arm hits the side of the tunnel, and he drops the gun?
Truly, no. I swear I watched it.
Okay.
I remember that scene because I kept thinking the tunnel was going to take his arm off, which is what would happen in the version of the movie I made.
Oh, maybe I did.
So I was like, he's going to lose
that's
an arm.
That's right before the helicopter crashes.
Yeah,
I
mean, I saw the helicopter crashing. I'm trying to piece together all the things leading up to that you guys talked about, and I was like, I swear, I promise I was watching this movie, but I've just completely, like, glazed over, and it meant nothing. Nothing sunk in.
Well, Jen, you just made something occur to me when you referenced Speed. Christian Slater also gets stuck under the train.
Yes!
Like Speed.
I was thinking about Speed so much during this, mostly because at first I was like, she should have been someone like Sandra Bullock, and then it just got stuck in my head. And then, yeah, same, when he's under the train and doing that kind of thing, I was like, okay, Keanu.
So this movie basically planted the seeds for every awesome action movie that came after it.
Speed came out before this, didn't it?
Did it? Yeah. Good. Okay, Speed did all the work then, which I prefer to think. I prefer the Speed be the hero.
I do think, though, this movie, like, as I was watching it, I started to have, like, a genuine affection for, like, Jackie and what she brings, because she's always just, like, 90s action movie, and it's, like, the most ridiculous, fun, and there's, like, elements of the same stuff in all of them, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I'm just like, I should have known this is what Broken Arrow was gonna be. You know what I mean? Like, I should have guessed that it was this movie, because it's a little bit The Rock, it's a little bit Speed, it's just, you know, 90s heroes, ridiculous, you know what you're in for.
Variations on a theme.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, honestly, you can't have a podcast of three smart people talking. No one would listen to that. You need to come down to the common denominator and be like, hey, let's watch some shit explode. I respect it, and I agree with you. I don't have any pretensions about knowing anything about movies. I just know what I like, and then I like watching those things explode.
You are very consistent.
Yeah.
Thank you. One of these days I'll surprise you.
Not consistent in what you like of our movies, because that could go either way, but you are consistent in your own picks.
Like, if I had seen this movie independent of the podcast, I would have been like, did Jackie make this? Because this is everything she likes.
So true. That's why I was so excited that you guys were coming at it fresh. Because it's literally like my personality summed up into Christian Slater's body. And so I was really interested to see what you would say. I actually thought you guys would hate it. I really thought it was going to be like, I know Austin is neutral to hate. Yeah.
Yeah, leaning that way.
It's just not her type of movie. But I expect her to really be angry about it. Just like, I hated this. It was torture. So I'm actually neutral is good.
You know why I didn't hate it? Because it was under 2 hours. Don't make me watch a 2+ hour action movie.
God, I got so many.
I know.
Oh no.
Can we talk about John Travolta's death scene? Should we just?
Okay, I don't know why. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, but I don't know why it had to come down to them mano-a-mano-ing it. Like, I know you had to, like, recall the boxing match, and the whole thing has been a cat and mouse kind of competition. So at the end, John Travolta's like, oh, I'll give you the detonator if you come and fight me. And so then they punch each other for 10 minutes. And
I was just like, shut up, stop talking. I think I wrote that. Just like, John Travolta, stop talking. And then
I will say at that point, I was kind of done. I'm like, I don't need to see another whole punchy.
Mhm.
Like, they're in an enclosed rail car. Like, there's not a lot of anything new that can come here. It's just, I punch you, you fall down. You stand up and punch me, and I fall down over and over. It wasn't like a dynamic, interesting fight scene. For
And
sure.
I think even if they were just going to do the punchy in the railway car, they could have almost made it harken back more to the boxing fight at the beginning. Like, if they had just acted like they were in a ring and they were boxing, I think that could have been interesting. And then when you have Christian Slater kind of just take over and actually start kicking ass, and then you're kind of like, oh, okay. Like, he's actually, like, tapping into it. He's, like,
Yeah, you learned.
doing it. Like,
Yeah.
he learned. Yeah, that I think would be better. But instead, like you said, it was a lot of just, like, punching, hitting a wall, falling down. Punching, hitting a wall, falling down.
yeah, it was.
So then, because we're getting to John Travolta's death scene, but I want to talk about the minute directly before John Travolta's death scene. So Terry has uncoupled the cars, but then she shot the engineer, and somehow that made that car stop. So the car John Travolta and Christian Slater and the nuke are on is barreling towards the stopped car. So somehow Christian Slater reaches his zenith of manpower and punches John Travolta a bunch. And then he gets the detonator, enters the code, and then jumps out of the rail car and points the remote control back and presses cancel as he's falling out with 2 seconds left on the nuke. I don't know how to feel. I was like, I simultaneously love it and hate it so much. I'm like, hey man, you're relying a lot on you being able to reach the signal and stuff, like, as you're falling. And it's a nuclear weapon. And there's 2 seconds left. So I think you should go to it and press it and die. Like, that's the move.
Yeah.
Make sure it's canceled. And if you die, then yeah, you know what?
Thank
Say
you for
la vie.
your service.
Yeah, goodbye.
Yeah.
But he risks everything by being like, I'm going to fly out, and haphazardly point it back and be like, hope this works. Bye. So annoying. I was like, you're not a great military pilot.
That's an excellent point. Also, this is yet another The Rock reference, right? Another comparison to The Rock, because we get another Rocket Man action, except with a nuclear weapon.
Totally. That is the weirdest part of that whole movie. I think the most unsettling part to me is the look on John Travolta's face when the nuke is coming at him. He has this like creepy villain, gleeful smile, and it's actually like a just. I don't like that exists in real life. Like, his face and the way he has expression is so gross. That he could make that expression makes me angry.
That exists in real life. His face.
It's true. There's something about him that just like
Right?
gets under my skin. I don't. Ugh.
To me, it's just the look on his face in that moment where I'm like, he's tapping into something really wrong in his body to
and
be
it
doing
also
that.
it also like was paired with another one of those just really awkward camera shots, like awkward camera movement where you're kind of like, what the fuck is going on? He's just getting like a weird zoom in and back out, like it was just weird. And then he just gets a nuclear bomb to the tummy.
He just stands up and like lets it happen, which is like, okay, that doesn't seem in line with who he is.
Right? I feel like he would try to duck.
He'd be like, haha, and he'd move sideways, and the nuke would go past him and be like, suck it, nuke, I'm
he'd
God.
probably still die in the explosion. But like
Anyway, I mean, it's very fitting for him to be hoisted by his own petard, if you will.
Yeah.
And his body folds in half in a delightful way. And he dies, and we're good. I mean, it's exactly what you expect. It's a big death for a attempted over-the-top villain, and it's like, there's no feelings. It's just like, yeah, that's right. Good.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
That's a good way to describe it.
Hasta la vista. And then...
Oh, sorry.
So I was just going to say, Christian Slater and Samantha Mathis finally introduce each other and shake hands and do not kiss. Can we talk about how angry I was as a child? I'm like, this is the makeout times. You just saved the effing world time to make out.
I, meanwhile, was super pumped that they didn't make out.
Why?
Because they have no...
We both were just like, what are you talking about?
I don't
didn't
care.
think that they had any kind of chemistry. I mean, why would they make out?
Yeah, they didn't even know each other's names till 2 minutes ago. Let them go for dinner first.
You guys do not understand these movies at all. I need to see it like 3 things: gunshots, explosions, makeouts. Like, that's it. You save the world, you earn a makeout. Samantha Mathis earned a makeout. And honestly, it's implied with the like sexy hand holding that they made out. We just didn't get to see it.
It's true. I was going to say maybe she didn't want to make out with Christian Slater, and so Park Ranger Terry went and picked out some other guy.
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys...
saved the world.
Park Ranger Terry, go do whatever you gotta do.
Honestly, she could do better. She really could do better.
Yeah, she's like, me and my dog at home deserve a better man.
I was wondering if you guys had any trivia about that you wanted to talk about? Samantha Mathis and Christian Slater, or do you want me to bring it up?
Oh, yeah. Why don't you take it away?
I'm assuming you're about to say that they either hated each other in real life or dated in real life.
Yeah, they dated at least like 3 movies they were in together and broke up in betweens. And Samantha Mathis was River Phoenix's girlfriend when he overdosed. So she's had a very troubled romantic life, but they never seem to say they hated each other. It's just that like I think she said it was like working with your brother. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's why they decided not to make out. Maybe it was their history. Maybe John Woo was like, we've run out of film. I blew up too many things. We have no time for this. Goodbye. End. Credits. But yeah, they did have a lot of personal stuff going on, which I think didn't come through, right? Like you don't see love or hate in their interactions on screen. It's just like 2 people doing a job.
Yeah.
I didn't get a lot of like romantic tension from them, but I also didn't get like disgust. I just kind of got like, we are 2 people in a weird situation together. Let's save the world. So like Austin, I kind of liked if it would have just ended with like a weird like friendship. Like, good job, buddy.
Yeah, like they obviously respect each other. They get along. Maybe they'll start dating, but that's not what this movie was about. This movie was about Park Ranger Terry basically saving the world.
I guess.
With her little sidekick, Christian Slater.
Right? Totally. Dead weight Christian Slater has to be carried around, basically. I guess, and I can see that being appealing, but that's just not the formula I like of action movies.
Yeah.
Make out. Thank you. Let me live vicariously, okay? I'm in quarantine. This is not what I need.
Can we talk about the weird side plot of, like, the government guys and how they do nothing? And I don't understand why they send one of them to Utah and what he contributes to anything.
I was just gonna say, like, we didn't talk about the government side of this at all.
So
because
weird.
There's nothing to it.
It doesn't make any sense. The whole plot doesn't make sense. There really must have been more movie that they cut.
And I thought, too, like, because whenever they show the government back in Washington, they're kind of like, let's continue to not let anyone know about the nuclear bombs that can go off at any time. So I thought maybe this guy who was on the base in Utah was going to be like, oh no, we have to evacuate, say, Colorado, because that's where the nuke is going. And we have to, like, he was going to force them into action in some way. But then that never happened either. So I was like, we could just cut all of this. Like, we don't need any of this government. Take this hour-and-a-half movie down to an hour. Like.
But that is, like, honestly, until you said that, I forgot that even happened, right? Like, it's so nothing. Again. Broken Arrow. Nothing.
Are we on to high points and low points?
We are. That's the end of the movie. John Travolta dies. No one makes out. Jackie's disappointed. Movie over.
I think we found Jackie's low points.
Okay, I'm still thinking of what exactly my high point was. Oh, actually, no, I do know what my high point was. This is a minor thing, but I actually really like the setting of it. Like, I liked it in the mountains and the desert and stuff. I thought the scenery was cool. I liked the backdrop of the action scenes. It was different. It was bright. I could see what was happening. That was cool. So I think that was my high point, just a little change of pace. And then for my low point, during the final fight between John Travolta and Christian Slater, I really didn't like, and I can't really articulate why I really didn't like it, but I really didn't like when John Travolta is explaining what being knocked out is like, or feels like, or what's happening. And he has Christian Slater pinned to some sort of surface. He has him pinned, and I don't know why. I don't know why that specific moment jumped out at me, but that whole, like, the dialogue and, like, that action, it just made me angry, and I can't really express why. It was just like a visceral, like, I don't like this.
Interesting. I wonder, I had the same kind of reaction too, but when I was thinking about it, I don't like whenever John Travolta talks through gritted teeth.
Yes.
Like this. It's very annoying, and like, if it affected me in any way, I would call it upsetting, but it's just stop doing that.
I think that's exactly what it is, and it just maybe hit me specifically in that moment. But it's his whole villain persona. I thought he is, in general, is my more broad low point, because I don't find him appealing at all as a villain. I find him just upsetting, like you said.
Yeah, understood. Totally. What about you, Jen?
I think my high point, I don't know if I can give one exact high point, but there was a lot of really, really ridiculous scenes that I've made fun of, but those were kind of my high points because they're so fun. Like, when at the end Christian Slater, like, takes the gun and shoots from between her legs at the bad guy or whatever, like, that's fucking nonsense, but I loved it. So just the kind of ridiculous stuff, or like the guy getting kicked out of the side of the train, like, the over-the-topness I enjoyed, so that kind of amped me up, so I was excited by that. So that's my high point, was the fact that it was ridiculous. My low point was either the fact that the three main characters are so underwritten that they're kind of not as good as it could. It kind of takes away from the movie. It could have been a lot more of an action classic if I really, like, was rooting for or against anyone, sort of, instead of sort of just having them be, like, you know, generic. They could have been stuntmen in this movie. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't add anything. So that
one's wearing a shirt. Sorry.
No.
I have two stuntmen. One says good, one says bad.
Yeah, basically. Exactly. And then my other low points is, I guess, just how cavalier everyone is about a nuclear weapon. Like, I was very concerned a lot of the time, and everyone else was like, okay, let's set it off. Okay, I'm sure we're fine. And then, like, the government in Washington being like, can't let anyone know. And I'm like, everyone's gonna die. You have to evacuate. What are you doing?
I know, they don't even close the park.
Yeah. There can be people out there fishing in that river, and, like, no one says anything about the nuclear bombs that are missing.
It's okay. It's true, too, especially because in the beginning they make a big deal about how big these nukes are. They're not just like the average nuke. They're super nukes.
Super nukes.
Very good. Very good highs and lows.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I went really more specific. So my high points were 2, and I was really happy that you brought this up. But I wrote, when he catches and then throws the grenade was one of them. I loved it. I love when someone catches and throws a grenade. It's like such a tense, high stakes thing to do, and it's like all about instinct. It's cool. I enjoyed it. But my second high point is I really love Samantha Mathis, and I love that she's an unapologetic nerd in this movie. Like, at one point, Christian Slater's walking and he steps on something. She's like, don't step there! And he's like, what? And she's like, that's some special cryptogamic soil. And he's like, I thought it was an explosive device.
Yeah.
And she's just, like, really worried about the soil. Like, she loves her job. She loves plants and soil. And I love it. She doesn't apologize for it. She's like, you're an idiot for stepping on that. Get your head out of your ass. And my low point, I wrote, was the unnecessary deaths. They execute a couple campers who are old and cute. They kill everyone on the train. They mention that. That happens behind the scenes, but they say they murder everybody on the train. They killed a bunch of hikers, a bunch of innocent people on helicopters. Like, one of the helicopter that gets taken down by the EMF pulse after the nuclear weapon, it has like 6 guys on it, and they just all explode. And I'm like, what about their families? Like, that's unnecessary. They don't all need to get exploded. So I just, at some point, there's like loss of life that's pointless, and it's just why? Like, if it's not advancing the plot and it's not even seen on screen, like, why even mention it? So I don't like that. It's just not my scene. You guys know that I don't like unnecessary. I'm all for plot driving death. Unnecessary death, no thanks. So those are my highs and lows.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any quotes?
I do. It's not like this is a funny movie, but there are very funny parts. Like, it's not a comedy. I can't decide
if it was trying to be funny or not, though.
They definitely were trying to be funny. When he shoots between her legs and she goes, wow. And he goes, yeah, that was a first for me too. That was supposed to be like, bust your gut laugh. They were like, oh, guess what he's going to say? And you're going to die. Didn't really translate, but you know that was the intent. And it's not about John Travolta's one-liners. I think Christian Slater has the more one-liners in this one. Honestly, I'm reading the quotes I wrote, and they're all really stupid.
They're good in the moment, I suppose.
Right, in the moment. He says, these exercises are fantastic. If we ever go to war against Utah, we're going to kick ass. So when they're flying nukes over Utah.
Yep.
I actually did want to ask you about a quote. What's the first time you've heard someone say, fuck them if they can't take a joke?
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this. He says it in Heathers too, doesn't he?
He does, but it's got to be from before that, right? Like, what's the origin of that statement?
Oh, I don't know. I just saw in the trivia that it's like the same line that he has in Heathers. Which I actually haven't seen, if that's on anyone's list.
I haven't seen it either.
All right, well.
Interesting.
I know, it's very surprising that I haven't seen it because, hello, Christian Slater. I do like, Giles, the military advisor, has one good line. And he goes, I don't know what's scarier, losing a nuclear weapon or that it happens so often there's a term for it. That term is broken arrow, everyone. No, I don't like any of these lines. Like, I don't even want to read them in my own voice.
I wrote down, I don't remember what the context was, but I know it's like towards the end with the fight between Christian Slater and John Travolta, where Christian Slater says, like, you're evil or something, and John Travolta just goes, yeah, ain't it cool?
Ain't it cool? He does a lot of weird, like,
yeah, it's
Jack
the way
Nicholson-y
the line
faces.
delivery, it was so insane that I had to, like, write it down, because I'm like, what is this?
Which is so funny, too, because there's a line that he says that the only interesting thing about it is the delivery. So if I say it, it doesn't even sound interesting.
Yeah, that's the hard part with some of these.
Yeah. He says, I said, God damn, what a rush when the nuclear bomb goes off. But he says it in such a creepy, weird, crazy way that I just can't replicate. So I wrote it down, but it's not anything. And then he also says when he kills the financing guy. Yeah. And he's like, I've never really killed anyone before. I don't really see the big deal. I'm like, okay.
Lame. I
And
can
then the
see
coolest-
what they were going for there, but it's just lame.
Yeah. It's like you can't sum up a sociopath / psychopath in like 2 sentences like that. You know, like you can't be like, I've killed people before, I don't care. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Like you can see what they're trying to do, but you can't do it so clumsily. Like you can't make someone show that they're an insidious, creepy, scary person by just being like, I can kill people and I don't care. It just doesn't come across that way.
Yeah.
I do like the line where he's like, do you understand what orders are? And he's like, yes, sir. He's like, well, we're about to break them. And then there's like a swell of music and you're like, yeah, Delroy Lindo. And that's it. I think I don't need to say any more of the quotes.
Are we at trivia?
Yes. Okay, so the budget for this movie was $50 million, and then the worldwide gross was $150.2 million.
Boom. I'm proud of this movie.
Good job, Broken Arrow.
Part of that money was Jackie going to see it.
Yes.
Multiple times. Not 15, like some people go to see movies. Maybe twice.
Yeah, okay.
Austin, I'm looking at you.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just choosing to ignore it. So John Travolta was given the choice of playing either Deakins or Hale, and then he chose the villain because I don't know why, but I want to know, how do you think that would have changed it if he was playing Hale? And follow-up question, if he was Hale, who would you have liked to have seen as Deakins?
Oh, see, I was assuming you just meant if they switched roles, so Christian Slater would be the
interesting.
bad guy.
I don't know if that was on the table.
Could not see it happen.
Yeah.
No.
I wouldn't mind seeing Delroy Lindo as the bad guy.
Ooh.
I would like them to be like similar age. Like I find that John Travolta and Christian Hale seems Christian Hale.
You've combined them now.
Christian Slater seems so much younger, like a baby compared to John Travolta, which I mean makes sense in terms of John Travolta's burning out. He's been in the military so long, but it had a weird paternal conflict angle to it where I didn't seem quite as equal as say like Delroy Lindo and John Travolta.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm. And he was underused, like criminally underused in this movie.
Right. All right. So the phrase broken arrow, it is a military term, but it is not used to refer to theft, loss, or seizure of nuclear weapons. That is actually called an empty quiver. A broken arrow is defined as a nuclear weapon that does not create the risk of a nuclear war.
I guess broken arrow just sounds more dramatic than empty quiver. I mean, fair. If you would have gone to see that movie.
Yeah, it doesn't sound as hyper masculine.
Yeah.
Right?
So Samantha Mathis asked her good friend Sandra Bullock for tips on doing action scenes.
Oh no.
Right?
Yeah, I'm like, oh no, this is what she did with Sandy's advice, and we're still sitting here being like, why wasn't this Sandra Bullock?
I mean, yeah, fair. But it was the haircut. I think it was the hair.
Yeah, and the time, like, this is kind of around speed.
Yeah. So, Sandra Bullock's advice was to hum the James Bond theme song before every take.
I mean, that would get you in the
Right?
vibe. It's like
Right?
when I had my job interview, my sister was like, make sure you do the power pose before your interview.
Yeah, it's
And
not
I
bad
did, and-
advice.
Yeah, it worked. I think it worked.
Now I'm gonna just imagine Sandra Bullock singing James Bond theme before every take of any of her movies.
Do you think she did it in every movie, even like Miss Congeniality?
I think
Yeah.
especially Miss Congeniality.
Good.
The lake house.
Okay, so this movie represents the only time that Roger Ebert convinced Gene Siskel to change his mind about his final judgment of the movie. Originally, Siskel gave the movie a thumbs up, but after listening to Ebert, he changed it to a thumbs down.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then, okay, it's been a while, but I have a numbers guess for you.
Yes, let's do it.
Approximately how many rounds of ammo were fired while making this movie?
How many rounds?
like bullets, essentially, right?
Yeah,
I'm gonna say,
we are famously good at numbers.
I know, I'm like 1,700.
Oh, I was like 30,000.
You're both way too low.
Oh my god!
What? How many?
50,000?
A million.
Okay,
You overshot there,
maybe
Jen.
high. Maybe
Damn
high.
it.
60,000.
Whoa!
That's-
1,700? What was I thinking? Wow. Bad at numbers.
Halle Berry apparently stated in an interview that she was considered for the role of Terry, but didn't get the part because a studio executive said that there was no such thing as a black park ranger.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
A, that is completely fucked up. And B, I think Halle Berry would have been perfectly fine in this role.
She'd have been great. Honestly, she would have been.
She
She
can
would have
act,
brought
she
something-
can do action scenes. Like, maybe she would have had some chemistry.
Maybe. If you can manufacture chemistry with like a puff of smoke shaped like a man. But I don't know. Like, I think Halle Berry, you're right, would have been great. But I still think Samantha Mathis was just as good. Like, I don't think she would have. She might have brought a different dynamic and like her personality, but like this movie didn't suffer from not having Halle Berry. It was the same movie it was always going to be.
Yeah, I agree. I thought Samantha Mathis was fine. I think she did the best with what was available, but Halle Berry also would have been great.
Yeah, she would have been good. And honestly, maybe it's better for her career if she didn't get this. Who knows? She's fine.
True.
But yeah, that is a terrible reason to not cast a person. Like, honestly, like,
I just want to rant on this again. But also, like, if he's saying, oh, there's no black park rangers, blah, 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 there's also no, like, fighter pilots that catch grenades and throw them and, like, run across tops of trains. Like, we're far outside the realm of possibility here, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and even speaking purely on physicality, like physical appearance, neither of these guys could have been pilots. Like, they
Yeah.
don't have the build. So why does that not matter? Only when a woman wants to do something?
Yeah.
Or a black woman, I guess?
Only when it's like, oh, a black woman is a park ranger in Utah. That's not believable. She has to be like, what? Only in, like, movies as, like, dancers or something? Like an entertainer?
I don't
She
know.
can't be a park ranger, nature nerd, like you were saying. Like,
Right. It would have been very progressive and could have potentially had representation for people who felt unseen. But now they're just like, fuck you. White girl, get in here. Act.
yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I got.
Okay.
So Jen, what came out this year?
So this is 1996. Can we all think back to that time? Austin, were you alive yet?
Yes, and I have memories from that year. Calm down.
Were you born in that year?
No.
I think she was conceived in 96.
No.
She was a twinkle in her mother's
My
eye
parents
that
listen
year.
to this podcast.
Oopsie. Hi, Austin's parents.
Hi, Austin's mom and dad. Thank you for listening. Anyway, 1996 was a great year for movies. So first of all, we have one of the greatest movies of all time, Scream.
Heck yeah.
We have another greatest movie of all time, Independence Day.
There it is. That's what I was already making an
Yeah,
argument
I knew
for.
you were waiting for it. There's also Fargo, Trainspotting, The Rock.
Wow.
Yep.
A great year. Twister, Anyone?
Oh, I love Twister.
Independence Day was the highest grossing movie, followed by Twister, Mission Impossible, and then The Rock. So this was like a Jackie in the theaters year, I guess.
Yeah, this was a good
Broken
year.
Arrow did not make the top 10, believe it or not. And it also didn't win any Oscars. Instead, those went to like The English Patient.
Shocking.
I'm
How
so
dare they.
surprised that, Best Supporting Actor went to, like, not John Travolta.
Right? Like, robbed, honestly.
But legitimately, 96 was a great year for movies. So
Such a good year.
We'll probably be revisiting more of these.
We will. Trust, we will. Ratings,
Ratings.
baby.
Austin, let's get the negatives over with.
Do it, girl.
Okay,
Do it.
enjoyment 3. I feel pretty good about a 3. It's just, I don't even know. Like, I don't know how to like articulate how nothing this made me feel.
Yeah. I think when you said you were bored,
Yeah.
that kind of sums it up, right? You've like no, like you said it. You already said it. No engagement, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm using your own words to explain back to you what you said.
Austin, let me tell you how you feel
Yes.
using
Dear Austin.
your own words.
I know. Here you go. My gift to you.
No, but I think that is it. There just wasn't enough for me to really get invested in. It had like some redeeming moments, I thought, but I think if it had been any longer, it would have been much worse of an experience. And then for quality, I mean, some of the scenes were like some of the fight scenes were good. The effects were mostly pretty good. Like I said, I liked the scenery, the backdrop of it. Acting, not so great, but I think I'll say like a 5.
Higher than I was expecting in both
I
categories.
mean, I
so I'm
try to
happy.
be objective in the quality part of it.
That's the goal. I never manage
No,
that.
yeah,
But I
that's a
understand that
struggle
that's
for you.
how I can't be objective about anything, right? I don't appreciate movies. I only appreciate how they make me feel. It's a very different perspective. Okay, Jen, you go.
My enjoyment. I think you were right, Jackie, when you said you were glad that we didn't know anything going into it. But because I didn't know anything going into it, I could kind of be along for the ride. Minus the 10 minutes where I was really confused at the beginning where the park ranger was.
God, I love that so much.
Blew my mind.
Like-
But I don't know. Unlike Austin, I was engaged. I was along for the ride. A lot of my notes were things like OMG and what is happening? Because I was really it was just, I don't know. There was a lot going on, and I think I enjoyed it. So it's like a 6, 7, maybe a 6.5.
Nice.
I had a good time for the most part. Quality, I would say, is a hard one because I think the action scenes were really good.
Yeah.
The acting and the writing were not. So it's I guess that makes it a 5, where it was this aspect was good and this aspect was bad, so we're just gonna put you in the middle.
Yeah.
Very
So Jen,
reasonable.
I think when you say, because most of my notes were also OMG, what the fuck, and I think we just have different feelings on
Yeah.
on whenever we have those reactions.
One of the notes I wrote, literally, how have I never even heard of a movie this insane?
You're welcome
Yeah.
for bringing it into your life.
You're right. I think when something insane happens, I take it as a bit of a joyful moment, and Austin takes it as why would you do this?
Yeah.
Okay, my enjoyment, I actually gave it an 8.5. This isn't a 10 for me. It's, it's been a
I
long
love
time
that
since
that's
I saw it.
low for you.
A low for a me pick. Usually they're ooh, 10 plus. But this time I was I didn't want to go as low as an 8, so I gave it an 8.5.
I remember a few weeks ago, you both yelled at me for trying to give a decimal point.
Ooh, did we?
Yeah.
Looks like I'm backtracking.
Yeah, it
and
looks like we
using
just broke
decimals.
that rule.
Yeah, Jen and I talked about it, and we decided it's okay when we do it. But yeah, I think I enjoyed it. Obviously, I love this movie. But my note to myself was, I think I used to think it was more thrilling. I think I remembered it being faster or more somehow. And watching it again, I was okay, a little bit of pacing problems, a little bit of unbelievable things happening. So it wasn't as amazing as I remembered, even if it's still amazing. And then for quality, I gave it an 8 as well. Because I said it looked cool. They did some cool things. There was some cool improvised weapons, which you didn't see in a lot of movies. Like she disarms a guy by kicking the rotor of a helicopter and it like knocks the gun out of his hand. Like they did things that were not necessarily expected. And that's just in terms of fight scenes. So it's not like it's groundbreaking in any way, but I thought it was cool what they managed to do. And despite the fact that it wasn't appealing to Austin, which I understand, I thought that they did a lot of things differently. It didn't seem stagnant. Like it wasn't just guns. It was like a lot of different things happening in a lot of different ways. So in terms of quality, I gave it an 8. That's it.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Broken Arrow, everybody.
All right. What a movie.
What a film. Cinematic masterpiece.
It was an experience.
Friendometer? I'm fine.
Yeah.
Super
all good
green.
here.
Super green.
Oh, does that mean it's my turn?
Sure does.
Oh, no.
Dare I?
Oh,
Oh, God.
Okay, I think you guys, because we've been teasing it a lot over the last few weeks, I think I'm going to make you watch Pennies from Heaven. But I'm terrified.
Oh, this is a big one.
This is my favorite movie, so please be gentle.
I know little to nothing about this movie, so this is going to be an experience.
Yeah, no concept of any part of this movie at all. It's a total Broken Arrow, no idea what I'm in for.
Okay. This is a crapshoot. Okay, I'm excited and terrified. It's good. So join us next week when we talk about Pennies from Heaven. That wraps us up for Broken Arrow. And you can follow us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste or on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. We also have a website that's IHateYourTasteInMovies.wordpress.com. And there is a link there to our merch. If you like what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. It really helps get the word out. So we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.